lies in Erz. To all the world, nothing more than a quaint old European village, nestled low in the Austrian Alps, with exception to its beauty, quite unremarkable. Until you look up. Erzberg. Mankind have been pulling iron ore out of this gigantic mountainside since before the Vikings first sailed to England. More recently though, it's become world famous for something entirely different. The Red Bull Harescramble. Brainchild of local nutjob Karl Katoch, the event first took place in 1995 with just 15 riders. Now, 1,500 flock to the Iron Giant every year. You see, the Harescramble was revolutionary in that Karl never set out to build the best racetrack possible, but rather the worst, with his ultimate vision, a course that was just shy of impossible. Word of the enormous challenge soon spread far and wide, attracting motocross and supercross greats, Dakar champions, freestyle pioneers, and everything in between. But most failed.
First time I went over to Erzberg, I thought, you know what? It's a motorcycle race. I'm not gonna get tired. It's gonna be whatever. It'll be fun.
I'm gonna get third. I'm gonna take your money, all right?
I got stuck in a freaking tree for 45 minutes.
All these guys are underestimating me. Because it's hard for them, it may not mean it's hard for me. That race is tough, man. Badass, man.
Godfrey, the first year, actually woke me up. I was taking a nap in the snow with no shirt, no boots, no gloves, no helmet in the middle of the race.
I go, oh, I won't get tired. Yeah. Nice, smart guy I am. I think that this is the gnarliest thing I've ever done on a motorcycle.
It was enduro champions like Juha Salminen and David Knight who found success in the early days, sometimes completing the course in as little as 1 hour, which infuriated Karl. You see, he secretly harbored a darker vision.
Rein theoretisch sollte es ein Erzbergrodeo geben, wo einer durch den Red Bull-Bogen fährt und alle anderen hinten nicht. Das wäre dann der Beste. Darum mein Ziel, einer braucht eigentlich nur durchkommen.
Well, having come up short of that goal for 20 years, in 2015, he got a bit carried away.
When we say that Karl Katoch and Heinz Kinnegartner were looking to get just one finisher, how does no finishers sound?
Motocross, cross country, enduro, and much more. Join me for the ride of a lifetime. By the late 2000s, what had started in Erzberg was now a fully fledged sport, extreme enduro, and more iconic events like the Tough One, Hell's Gate, Roof of Africa and Red Bull Romaniacs started cropping up all over the world. But Erzberg remained the crowning jewel. In 2007, it gave us the discipline's first superstar. In the most unlikely of fashions.
Es war dann so, dass wir am Abend dann eine Veranstaltung gehabt haben, so ähnlich wie ein Enduro-Cross, und eine Person ist ja eben mitgefahren mit einer Trailmaschine. Und ich habe das gesehen und habe gesagt, boom, also gewaltig. Und so habe ich auch den Heinz angerufen und gesagt, ich brauche einen Motorradfahrer, der in Erzberg gewinnen kann. Und der hat gesagt, das hat er mich gefragt, ob ich was getrunken habe. Und ich habe gesagt, nein, also es gibt wirklich einen, ich habe einen. Ja. Und er hat gesagt, du meinst das ernst? Und ich habe gesagt, ja. Dann hat er bei KTM angerufen gehabt und haben sie mal der Presse gebracht.
When complete unknown rider Teddy Blazouziak came past, minutes before anyone else, the press didn't even bother to photograph him. They just figured it was some clown who'd gotten lost. But he wasn't. Karl hadn't just gambled on some random horse here. No, he knew about Teddy's past. As a European trials champion. And trials, if you really squint your eyes, is just kind of like the worst parts of Erzberg all the time, with the goal being to try and make it through without so much as putting your foot down. Karl had suspected that these skills might translate well, but nobody could have predicted just how well.
Der Traum, dass ein Privatfahrer mit einem geborgten Motorrad und dann das Ding gewinnt, das ist so absurd und so eine Märchen-Cinderella-Story, dass wirklich keiner daran gedacht hat, dass das passieren kann.
Teddy Blazouziak wins the Red Bull Harescramble.
And it was no fluke. Teddy put the race into a stranglehold for the next 5 years, rising from complete nobody to bona fide enduro icon in record time. However, his last win was a shaky thing. 5 times British trials champion Graham Jarvis actually beat him to the finish line, but was disqualified for missing a checkpoint. And Graham was just the first in a whole wave of disillusioned trials pros that would convert for a slice of this potentially lucrative new extreme enduro pie. Whether he could see the writing on the wall or was just ready for a change, Teddy chose this moment to shift his focus onto another burgeoning format, enduro cross, which left the Iron Giant wide open. From this point onwards, if you didn't have at least a national level trials championship in your background, you couldn't hope to win a damn thing in extreme enduro.
It's quite an easy crossover because you've got that balance, you've got the control when you come to the rocks and the logs and that.
It took a bit of adapting to the speed aspect of enduro, but I think it gives you clutch control, finding grip, looking for lines.
The trials movement had taken hold. It was the first major evolution in the sport's meta, kind of like the Fosbury flop was to high jump, and Graham seemed even more proficient at it than Teddy. Yet his reign wouldn't last half so long.
My name's Johnny Walker, I'm 23 years old and I ride for the factory KTM team. I just want to dominate the sport of extreme enduro. It's definitely a growing sport.
Johnny was a youth trials phenom who'd converted to enduro much younger and simply adapted better to the high speed element. It was a small edge he had over Jarvis, who was still untouchable whenever the going got tough. Recognising this, rather than try to beat the silent assassin at his own game, Johnny instead doubled down on the high speed stuff, figuring that if he could overwhelm Graham by enough there, he might just be able to hang on through the technical sections.
You know, when I go to a race and come second, it pisses me off, so, you know, you've got to do what you got to do to win.
Yeah, let's see how you do under pressure. Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Hey. Ain't no errors, baby, it's a new era. I wake up early, feeling rich like I'm Kesha. I get to the paper, boy. Extra, extra. Fuck with me, you know that I got it. Come with me, let's take a trip to the islands. We up on the jet, we'll do more than just fly on it. Stand on that hill, you gon' die on it. Boom, boom. Baby, I'm not one of them, you should try on it. Miss me with all that, I'm on to the next. Fuck this up, I send you back to your ex. But good luck with that, this is big as it gets. Hey, let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. Give them a name to remember. Hey, let's see how you do under pressure. Let's see how you do under pressure. A moment can live on forever.
With his new motocross proficiency, Johnny began stealing wins left, right and centre. But where this second evolution really became impossible to ignore any longer was Erzberg 2014.
Wow, that was quite the move from the KTM man Walker. Unbelievable that he's taking chances like that.
Taking the lead in the most motocross fashion imaginable, he then checked out by an almighty 15 minutes and won.
Unfortunately, it was never to be, and Johnny's ridden really well, so it's always going to be difficult to beat him today, I think.
It'd be difficult to beat him ever again. Over the next 12 months, Johnny Walker won every single event he entered. So you'd expect going into 2015, he'd be the obvious favourite. But he wasn't.
The man to beat in this year's Red Bull Harescramble, Tadej Blasuziak, the undisputed king of Erzberg.
Because the Polish nightmare was returning.
He's back after a 4-year absence, and the 5-time champion is looking for win number 6.
And like Johnny, he'd also been turning everything he touched to gold.
Since Tadej raced here last, he has not been sitting quiet. In fact, he went over to the States and has 5 Enduro Cross Championship wins. But Johnny Walker, he has proven himself and is now the undisputed king of hard enduro. Now, the major contrast between these riders ends when you look at the bikes. Both are riding identically prepared KTM 300 EXCs. The major difference is the choice in tires and gearboxes. But guys, keep in mind, this is the first time they are racing against each other here at Harescramble.
Did you hear that? It was the sound of the entire off-road world collectively sitting up in their chairs. You see, enduro on the whole was going through a popularity bloom at this time, and no two riders in the 100+ year history of the sport had ever reached these levels of notoriety. Tadej was a multi-times X Games gold medalist now, and Johnny was young, well-spoken, and dominating all of the world's gnarliest races. This would be our Mayweather versus McGregor. A clash of Enduro's two biggest titans in their respective disciplines. And all bets were off. Nobody knew quite what to make of the matchup. Johnny was on a perfect season and seemed superhuman, unbeatable. But Tadej, well, this was his event. He was undefeated at Erzberg, the winningest rider ever. I cannot remember a more hyped time in the enduro stratosphere. And with unusually warm weather forecast, thousands upon thousands of spectators, riders, crew and staff poured into the Iron Giant for what was surely to be a battle for the ages. Johnny struck the first blow. He set the fastest time up the Iron Road Prologue, Erzberg's unsurprisingly dangerous qualifying event, and secured first gate pick for Sunday's main race, which was both a blessing and a curse. You see, Tadej, who'd qualified right behind him in third, could now just see wherever Johnny went on Sunday and line up one spot further inside of him. Which was exactly what he did. And with all eyes trained on those two, What flew almost entirely under the radar was that Graham, who'd historically struggled with the high-speed prologue, had quietly qualified 10th, his best ever. Clearly the silent assassin hadn't been sitting idle.
One of the big differences in 2015 is the temperature. It is significantly hotter than it was last year, and no rain. This is just going to add to the grueling torture test that is Red Bull Harescramble. We've got the reigning champion back and a 5-time winner. It's hard not to be excited.
But they have never raced each other here at Erzberg.
It happened immediately.
Look at this is huge!
This was an insane battle for the whole shot, I would say.
And the lead is so important, and right here, shoots right in front of him and takes out Taddy's front wheel. I don't think it was intentional, but definitely wanted the whole shot, and Taddy rolls all the way to the bottom.
Well, guys, as you just saw, that start was unbelievably tight, and you can see behind me the bike. That is Taddy Blazusiak's bike. Going up the hill, he fell off, a cloud of dust. We will keep you posted as to what exactly happened, but I did see Taddy walk away with a very disappointed look on his face, and right now the second line is about to go.
It was such a bummer, you know, like he crashed in the first uphill and had to quit the race, but he had a concussion.
Bit of a shame for him, but it is racing, and I just wanted to get a start because I knew that the dust was going to be like this.
What you've got to understand is that in a mass start like this, it's not even a sure thing the top riders will see each other all race. That was probably the most likely outcome. Yet this, most hyped of duos in Erzberg's whole history, had clashed within just 100 meters.
After a 4-year hiatus, the king was promptly dethroned and dismounted less than 30 seconds into the race. He was lucky to walk away with only his pride injured.
In fairness though, Taddy'd done everything perfectly. He lined up on the inside, controlled the first turn and led going into that uphill. Johnny just never let off the gas. And here's why. Second place already can't see a thing. If that's him right now, his entire race card over the more technically skilled riders like Graham is rendered obsolete. That's why his commitment was so unwavering. He needed this. And to his detriment, the king, who wasn't about to back down either, had learned that two objects simply cannot occupy the same point in space at the same moment in time. It was a perfect start for Johnny. When your competition are either seeing 2 meters in front of their tyre or the inside of an ambulance, your chances are looking pretty good. Time to drop the hammer.
Johnny Walker out front, on the move here. That KTM just screaming as he completes water pipe.
I was going fast. Maybe it would have been better to go a little bit slow and try and save my tyre, but I was young and wanted to win the race bad, so.
See Johnny Walker there going through the checkpoint. Every rider must complete that. If you miss a checkpoint, it is immediate disqualification.
One rider who knew that all too well was Graham Jarvis.
The 2013 champ is on the charge.
Lee, you can never count out Graham Jarvis. He's old school, he's won races all around the world.
And he was continuing his trend of career bests. Third across the first checkpoint and closing fast on P2.
Johnny Walker is still number one. And it's easy to see why as we ride on board.
I remember this. Kenny, one of the filmers, got to see my bike from the bottom. I felt so bad for him.
Oh my god, cameraman down.
Because I knew how much that must have hurt him, and I knew he'd have to film for the rest of the day. I felt so sorry for him.
Kenny Coburn, he's always at the events with us as well, so he knows it. A bike can fly sometimes, so probably was a little bit prepared, but...
I remember riding off from here and I felt so bad.
It was more than just an empathetic dilemma too, because Erzberg gets exponentially harder as it goes along, and these trees mark the point beyond which technical ability starts reigning supreme. Every little mistake Johnny made from now would be another huge opportunity for Graham to claw back some time. This is exactly why they call him the Silent Assassin.
Husqvarna's Graham Jarvis now up to second, so Johnny Walker's lead is starting to dwindle.
I remember just trying not to lose any time. You know, as soon as you get stuck and roll back and have a few attempts, you can lose 10 seconds and then 20 seconds. And then by the end of the race, you know, you've lost quite a few minutes.
Andreas Lentwickler has moved up to third. He's got by Wade Young. Now it's Alfredo Gomez's turn at Three Kings.
Graham's teammate Alfredo, much like Johnny's, had crashed on the first hill. But there seemed to be something special in the water over at Husqvarna. Gomez had already worked his way back up to 5th and was pulling time on the race lead. Sadly though, this meant cameraman Kenny copped his bike as well. Up ahead, Johnny was about to hit the most recognisable section in all of enduro.
Karl's Diner, one of the most treacherous sections of this course.
Well guys, Karl's Diner has always been a treacherous section, but this year they've made it even more difficult by making the riders do that top section not just once, but twice. Double the effort, double the exhaustion. But when talking to the riders, one of the bigger concerns was this run-in. You can see behind me, a lot of them were scratching their heads, figuring out how they were gonna do this. And this is just the beginning of Karl's Diner.
I remember walking this and I thought, we cannot be going down there, it must be a joke, because it was so steep. And then when I got there in the race, I couldn't believe it.
This is nearly vertical, it's insane.
Here comes the Silent Assassin. Graham Jarvis has closed the gap substantially on Johnny Walker.
1 minute 16 down, dropping into Karl's Diner. I wasn't actually thinking of that at this point. All I was trying not to do was kill myself in these massive rocks. Because even that bit there is steep as anything, so...
Johnny was in real trouble here. You see, if this is Karl's Diner, then Graham must be his #1 customer, because he's eaten many a great rider in this section. It's basically just a massive trial stage. To put things into perspective, I've ridden motocross bikes since I was 6, yet I wouldn't even be able to get in there, let alone through it. Unless you've ridden trials at a high level before, the skill set required is totally foreign. This was where Travis Pastrana, who lacks those skills, passed out from heat exhaustion. And that was on a snowy day. Here, it was 30 degrees.
I remember it being so hot in here, because in Karl's Diner, you're just in the sun.
This year was so hot, and also them rocks sometimes just save the heat, and like it feels, I would say, 10 degrees warmer than outside of course, you know.
Yeah, that's right, all radiating up, and of course, you know, you've got like a helmet on with no breathe holes in it or anything. You're just cooking, your head is cooking, isn't it?
You're also going so slow, you know, you have like no wind what's coming through or anything.
And with the track doubling back on itself for the first time, this 2015 edition of Karl's Diner would be twice as long as ever before. It was going to be survival of not only the fittest, but more importantly, the most efficient. Johnny is fortunately amongst the best handful of riders in the world through this section, but those of us who speak the Erzberg language know that a 1 minute advantage over Jarvis going into Karl's diner will translate to second place soon enough. This is his house. And besides, Johnny had something apart from just Volkswagen-sized rocks occupying his mind right now.
So I remember stopping here or something and talking to my mechanic at the time because I had a problem with the fan wasn't working on the radiator, so my bike was getting super hot. You can kind of tell by the exhaust how blue it is that it's not running right. You can see how hot my bike is there. It's like a kettle boiling.
This hadn't been a problem till now because he was moving, but in Karl's diner, a crawl is as fast as you can ever hope to go. Just like its rider, Johnny's bike now had zero airflow and was cooking. All his mechanic could do was squirt water onto the radiators and pray that that poor old KTM 300 engine made it out to the other side before seizing.
You can see Graham there, he's not far behind. He's actually closing on me, look. That's his strong point, he's so good in the rocks. So I remember trying to just concentrate doing my own thing, try and ride smooth and not make too many mistakes. And look after the bike was the main thing, because I knew that it was going to be a struggle to get it to the finish.
Look in the background. Here comes Alfredo Gomez closing the gap now on Letty. And Letty decides to dismount.
Here he goes, skiing down the hill. If you notice, he's got his right armpit on the seat, holding the back wheel down, letting the rear wheel be completely locked up because the motor is stopped and just using the front brake. And now Gomez decides, I like your line a little bit better.
This is survival of the fittest, the toughest, the smartest. It's a combination of everything. And however you can get down to the rock garden here at Karl's Diner, you do it.
You'll have noticed by now how the difficulty's ramping up. Karl does this intentionally to weed out the unworthy, one by one. Of the 500 that started, fewer than 50 would even see the doors of his diner. And reach the other side, less than 10. This is where the cream really rises to the top. You see, help's no longer allowed. Beyond this point, if a spectator so much as tugs at your front wheel, you'll be disqualified. Get stuck now, and your options are to get unstuck or quit. And bear in mind, this is only checkpoint 17 out of 25. If the track's just getting worse, what did that mean was yet to come? Well, not even the riders knew.
Erzberg's a bit strange. Everyone's kind of like super secretive about where they're going to walk and stuff like that. And whenever you see a hire car leave the car park, you're like, quick, get in the car and follow them, because like the organizers are pretty secretive about marking the track out. Like they try and leave the track as late as possible to put the arrows in so you don't know exactly where it goes. Whenever I seen Graham or someone like that leaving, I'm just like running over to him. Can I come with you? Like just literally doing everything I can to figure it out.
Now look how close we're getting for the lead. There is Johnny Walker, center of your screen. Look at top right. Here comes Graham Jarvis.
To nobody's surprise, Graham had caught up. But due to the one-lined nature of Karl's Diner, he hadn't been able to make a pass. Things were looking good for Johnny.
Johnny Walker drops the bike.
And I put a hole in my radiator. And that's when I actually thought, I'm out of the race now.
Of all the things he could have damaged, it was the already compromised cooling system. Johnny had punctured his radiator. He was finished.
Darum mein Ziel, einer braucht eigentlich nur durchkommen.
Race organizer and event founder Karl Katoch always has something up his sleeve. He likes to throw a surprise the rider's way. This is it, Ricky. It's the new section called Downtown, and there is a new race leader. It's Graham Jarvis.
You can see how wet it is. We've noticed that everywhere else is dry and dusty, but here in downtown, it's basically a stream, and no rider has ever taken a motorcycle up here. Karl has designed this just by walking it, and now the riders are seeing it for the first time, but our new leader, Graham Jarvis, is struggling in downtown.
Unaware that Graham was in trouble now too, a dejected Johnny Walker watched on helplessly as Alfredo Gomez took second place away. But he hadn't completely given up just yet.
And I was actually emptying my camel pack onto my radiator to try and cool it down.
He had a plan. You see, he was riding for an Austrian team, sponsored by an Austrian energy drink at the biggest enduro event of the year, taking place in Austria. There was support available to him all over the track, and whilst they might not have been able to help him directly anymore, they could place things on the ground within arm's reach of him. So Johnny figured that if he just let the bike cool for a bit, he might be able to limp it along to the nearest punter who had a bit of radiator sealant on hand. It was his best hope.
Can you believe what we're seeing? These hard enduro guys are the fiercest competitors. Now they are helping each other out, this unseen terrain.
Alfredo and Graham are pulling already each other. It's a no-help zone, you know, from machine on, so
no outside assistance, but riders can help each other riders, absolutely.
As those two started battling away, Johnny got back on the move. And sure enough, just up the track, he found exactly what he was looking for.
I was just getting some water off someone then in my radiator, so then I could carry on.
He frantically worked to seal the hole and fill it back up, unaware that Graham and Alfredo were just 50 metres further up the track, and not like to be going anywhere soon. No, as a matter of fact, they weren't even halfway up the hill, and the steepest part was still to come.
And you hear the sound of another bike. That's Johnny Walker fast approaching.
When I came around this corner and I seen them two helping each other, I was like, what is going on here? To get to them was an absolute mission. It looked not too bad to ride. It was super steep, but it didn't look that difficult to ride. But every time you set off, you just sunk into the ground.
Basically carrying a 250-pound motorcycle straight up the hill.
My goal was just to get to them. I thought if I get to them, then I can join in and try and help them and get on the train of helping each other. Or if not, try and ride around them, and then they've got to pull me up. Graham loves this. Watch his attempt of pulling. Look. He just he just doesn't pull. I remember like shouting at him like, what are you doing? Because he was never pulling. I think he was just trying to save his energy, or he was done that he didn't have any energy left.
Maybe he'd simply glanced up the hill and saw how far they still had left to go. After 20 years of upping the ante, only to watch riders complete it even faster than they did the one before, Karl had finally stumped them. This was Grüne Hölle, Green Hell, but it was only named that in retrospect. On the day, they called it Killing Leap. If you can't work out why, then you're probably too young to know. But it's a feature these riders would come to consider. They'd been sweltering now, in this humid gully, for over half an hour.
You can kind of tell how everyone's sweating, even like people that aren't even in the race, they're that hot. There's Letty showing us what he thinks of this bit of the track.
Lettenbichler has now joined them in, so we've now got 4 of the best brains in extreme off-road trying to sort out this conundrum of how to get up.
And as 45 minutes came and went, Wade Young made that 5. 5 factory riders, dragging each other's bikes up a creek, inch by inch.
All banding together. To finish first, you first must finish. So these riders realize that they're not going to get to the top by themselves.
And some replenishments. A little Red Bull to get this top quartet through. Not only are they helping each other, they're looking after each other.
This is when Letty decided to retire, I think. He's like, what are we doing?
He's just out of energy, you know, like you race 1.5 hours and then you have to pull bikes.
That is one of the best hard enduro riders in the world, and he's used up everything he has in his tank. He is spent. He is exhausted.
And he was far from alone and growing desolate with Karl's dark fantasy. What had started as an intriguing abnormality here in Green Hell had become ridiculous. These riders had been stationary now for an hour and a half, pulling each other's bikes as if they were on some sort of a trail ride that had gone a bit wrong. Not in the lead of Enduro's biggest race, that they'd spent months training to try and win, that their teams had spent thousands to get them there, that spectators had been camped out in the mine for days to see the outcome of, or that millions were watching live at home. This was a bad joke.
I remember being here and like being absolutely destroyed, and then having to, instead of just getting off at once, you had to go walk up, back down, walk up, back down. So it's probably one of the hardest things I've done.
After an almighty 2 hours and 3.5 since the race first started, they finally dragged the 4th bike painstakingly over the precipice.
Exhausted for the top 4 would be an understatement at the top of downtown.
But I think you'll find the most agitated person in the Iron Giant right now was actually Karl himself. You see, every finger of blame for this circus was already pointed firmly at him. But he was staring down the barrel of a much bigger embarrassment. In 30 minutes' time, we'd hit the 4-hour cutoff.
When we say that Karl Katoch and Heinz Kinnegartner were looking to get just one finisher, how does no finishers sound?
No finishers would ruin the event's reputation, but they still needed to get Wade's bike up and then complete another 7 more checkpoints. There just wasn't enough time. So, in what I can only assume were Black Monday levels of panic, a barrage of orders came bellowing down the radio. Marshals were commanded to reroute the remainder of the course as the crow flies. And up at Green Hell, it was basically execute order 66. Abandon Wade and resume racing immediately.
You know, I was gutted for Wade because he was a real good help. He was pushing hard. I felt for him, you know, because I spoke to him at the end and he wasn't happy, but...
Imagine sweltering in that heat for hours, pushing your body way beyond its limits, all because of a mistake in the organisation, only to have those same organisers then turn around and essentially kick you out of the race for no better reason than to save face. It's completely insane. And no less was the expectation that the other 4 would now just resume racing like nothing had happened.
There's so much respect between these top riders over here that I wouldn't be surprised if all 4 of them ride from here all the way to the finish together. And I think that's exactly what they're going to do.
Are we all just going to finish together? Yeah, we all just finish together.
Yes, you heard right. The 2-time and defending champ, Johnny Walker, proposing the top 4 finish together.
they were like, we don't gonna restart, racing because it made no sense. So they teamed up because they were just pissed and not really happy about this situation.
They were brothers in arms by this point. Any semblance of a race had long since fallen by the wayside. And in further defiance of the bullshit, Wade rode around the hill and joined them back in. A message that sadly went right over the commentators' heads.
We have just received a report that Wade Young bypassed downtown, and unfortunately, he has been disqualified. He missed checkpoint 18. You miss a checkpoint, you're out. It's a black and white rule.
What followed was perhaps the most memorable scene ever in enduro. Imagine if Hamilton and Verstappen had have driven slowly to the finish line together in Abu Dhabi to spite Michael Massey and his crap.
We went to car racing.
Would have been completely absurd, right? Yet it was exactly what was happening here.
They are indeed going to do what Johnny Walker proposed earlier and finish all as one.
It was such a special moment, I think, for everybody,
Well, that's right. That's a nice thing that came out of it.
And look at it. The fiercest competitors, they're sticking together like a group.
This is an awesome display of brotherhood, Lee. Karl Katoch threw an obstacle at them that they could not do individually, but they banded together, and the four of them are going to cross the line together.
You have to help each other sometimes.
So these are just some pretty basic hills, but it was literally we were just riding around with our mates at the finish. It was quite a funny day out, actually.
Yeah, what a special moment, The guys just waving to the camera and having a cool ride into the finish,
But to what end? The thing is, they had no idea.
But we didn't really know what to expect when we came into the finish, because, do they want 4 finishes or do they want 1?
And you can understand their cause for concern. Karl's decisions unto this point hadn't exactly been confidence-inspiring. What would he do now? Have them fight to the death? Mercifully, he chose this moment to finally start making some good decisions.
This is an incredible story. 2 of the 4 have won before. That's Graham Jarvis and Johnny Walker. For Alfredo Gomez and Andreas Lettenbichler, it will be their maiden victories at Harescramble.
The 4 riders became the first and last ever joint winners of the Erzbergrodeo. And as far as I can work out, to this day, they remain the only ones in the whole history of motorcycle racing. So why then have you never heard about any of this? Well, it's been largely swept under the rug. Out of embarrassment, I think. Karl and his team did cop a lot of heat from the fan base afterwards, and the riders weren't exactly stoked on the whole thing either.
When they say that we all won and 4 people won, it's not the same as winning by yourself. Last year when I won, it was like an awesome feeling, but this year you won and it's like, did I really win?
This year was definitely way too much, from my perspective, I would say it should be still rideable, and not take a sip Red Bull or whatever, and that's not racing, If 4 of the best riders think there's no way to go up, it's ridiculous. Yeah,
it's just too hard.
The thing is though, I can still remember watching this live when I was 16 with my mates on Skype, and we all thought that it was just the coolest thing ever. It was like a weird sort of extreme enduro version of the Star Wars ending trope, where our heroes forced to team up with the big bad in order to defeat an even bigger, badder baddie and save the day. We sat up for hours afterwards, rewinding back through and discussing whether things would have been different had Taddy have been with them. It was awesome. It felt like we'd witnessed history, the ultimate edition of Erzberg. That said, we all definitely agreed that it shouldn't happen again.
It's the way extreme races are going, you know, they're really difficult now and they try to catch out the top riders and they might make it too hard, and I think that's what they did there. And it's good because now they realise that, like, as long as the top 5 riders can ride it, you know, it's good for everyone. So hopefully next year it'll be a little bit easier there, but the whole of the other race was really good. I enjoyed it, but just that one section was too difficult.
And to their credit, they did learn.
I suppose you've got to push the boundaries sometimes to find out where they are. But they haven't got it wrong again since, have they, either, Manny? I mean, it's been pretty good since, right?
It happened, but I think also the organizers and the track managers learned out of it that it shouldn't happening again, you know?
Ever since, Karl and his team have walked the line to perfection, creating some more truly brutal sections, but ones that were ultimately rideable. And it's made for some great racing.
And it's Shan. Wade's off his bike. Nice Wade, so Wade's just took first place from Manny.
In light of this, I think it's time to embrace 2015, to claim it and celebrate it for the moment that it was. A thing that got people talking and feeling. A glimpse into how epic Karl's vision of one lone finisher could have truly been. You see, I fully understood the appeal now that we'd had a taste of it. And I mean, in a way, did he not kind of do it? Yeah, there were 4 finishers, but occupying one position? Well, actually no. Because another rider, unbelievably, summited green hell after these guys. And his story is almost completely lost to time. In the hours and hours worth of footage I gathered to make this video, all I found was one 2-second long clip of him. My best guess as to how he did it? Friends of his that were in the race caught wind of the situation up at Green Hell and cut the track to come and help their mate. What followed must have been a mad dash from hell, using up every last ounce of energy his body had left to offer. He sprinted to the finish line, arriving just 64 seconds before the cutoff.
.500 started, only 5 finished, and Mario Roman Serrano should be proud of that.
Alone in second place, Mario Roman had robbed Karl of even this bastardized claim to the one finisher dream. Call it poetic justice for Wade, who in my heart at least will forever remain a 5th winner. As deserving as any of the rest of them. Would things have gone differently if Teddy was with them? I don't think so. To tell you the truth, I actually think all the hype was for naught. Because in the years that followed, the King tried again on numerous occasions and never even cracked the top 5. It seemed in the time he took off, the sport had moved on. Graham went on to match his win record and is now considered by many to be the real king of Erzberg. As for Green Hell, it was like the miners knew of the misery it had caused. When 2016 rolled around, riders found only 1 million tons of rock, covering it up like some radioactive waste. Never to be seen or heard from again, but always feared. For that reason, these 6 will forever remain the only riders to have conquered it. And certainly, the only ones to have ever shared the top step of the podium at Erzberg. Which I think is worth remembering.